Ladies and gentlemen, we are here again. We will go in 3 minutes. Our program is the academic writing class that support from both Balsamo Outreach for learning and teaching. Yeah. The founder is Professor Dr. Peter John Wanda, professor in Tohoku University in Japan. The class is continuously from December to January. In between, we will have seminars, at least 2 or 3 seminars, and then one of the scheduled seminar is uh, higher education symposium as the program to identify what is the possibilities that we can do later in 2025. And the schedule one, the program will be Balim Forum. Professor Dr. Peter John will join us here in Indonesia from 16 to 25 of May. And then another possibilities, we are planning for having a meeting, seminar in Vietnam, in Dalat, around December next year. Thank you, everyone. Still join and support of the initiative of Bolt to extend the opportunity to learn and to teach. Balsamo Outreach for Learning and Teaching as the NPO in Japan for years, and then in the early of 2025 will hand over to HQ here in Indonesia, since Sensei will go for another program, and then he will hand over this institution to us. Now, it is time for us to start our academic writing class, and then we already have 2 meetings before, and this is the third meeting of the academic writing. And then Sensei already write over there in the whiteboard as the paper elements or the format of the paper, required elements, paper elements, format, and organization. Without further ado, I would like to hand over mic to Professor Dr. Peter John to start our class with thankfully. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Today I'm going to talk to you about paper elements and format and why it's important. What we need in academic writing is we need consistency. Consistency in the order, structure, and the format of paper elements that allows readers so they can focus on a paper's content rather than its presentation. So I'm going to be talking about APA style guidelines that can be used to achieve consistency for presentation of paper elements, and why this is essential to crafting and creating an effective scholarly work. So I'm going to cover these areas today and give an overview, which is going to include the structure, format, and how to organize them. And these guidelines are applied broadly inside the APA style paper, but they can be applied to other paper formats as well in other journals. And later on in the next sessions, I will then move towards talking about quantitative and qualitative and mixed methods research and more details in that area. But today I'm going to concentrate on elements and format. So Some of these things may be considered um, very taken for granted, but with all the guidelines, guidelines are set up so that we don't take things for granted. So I'm going to be covering the different areas that are covered under APA guidelines today, which may be able to help us in writing our papers or articles. So first of all, I'd like to talk about the required elements. So we're going to look at required elements first here today. Required elements are, we have to look at what type of paper we're actually writing, whether it's a manuscript that we're doing for a publication, or whether it is a, what type of article that we're going to do. So the paper title and the author's names and the institutions, these are very important because these are at the beginning of the paper. So the title page is usually the very beginning page of the paper that is very, very important for us to follow, which has the authors and the other areas listed inside of it. And this area that we have, student papers have different guidelines on how we actually set up our title page, how the title page is actually set up. And inside the each one has guidelines, but usually you may have a running head on the top of the pages. If you have a title of your paper, on each of the pages, you might have a running head up in the top corner of each page that you're actually with the title of what the paper is. But the title is usually on the title page. Usually we have the title in the center. So a study of mammals. Okay, so the title will go first usually on the title page. And following the title page, on the title, we have the authors. So this is the title. Then you have the authors. Authors follow usually on there. And there you can use authors in different ways. You may have one or two authors, or you could have various ways that we list the authors. If you do the name of the author and the title page, we have the following the authors, we will have the affiliations. So here you might have Warner, Peter, John. And following this, we'll have the affiliation, which mine would be Tohoku University. So the affiliation. And also on the title page, you would have the, you may have an author note down below, which might say something about what type of grant you're working with, or what where you got money to support your project. So you can include what type of group project you're working on together. This might be put into the author note at the bottom of the page. So these are general things that are put inside a title page. It's usually centered inside this, centered in the middle of the page. So these are very common in all manuscripts or other articles. Now, I'm going to go into some of the specifics where we have we might have what is an effective title and an ineffective title? What can be a good title in the title page, or what can be an ineffective title? So let me put a sample title up here. Let's say we put a study of the effect, um, of depression on the decision to join to join um, a clinical trial. So this is a very, very long title. Very long title. How can we make this title better so that it is shorter or more concise? So one thing that we can do is we try to make it more direct and also get rid of the unnecessary words that we have inside the title. So we can start with what is the main keywords of the site? Well, we're looking at the effect of depression, So we could say effect, we could say effect of depression. And put that first. Then we could put what type of effect. It's the effect of depression on the decision. On the decision to join a clinical trial. So in this case, this part here, a study of the is not necessary. It just makes the title longer, and we don't need to extend the title. So one thing that is recommended is that we need to shorten our titles so that they are concise and clear. So this is an example of how we could get rid of the first part of the section and then make the title more clear. Make the title more clear. So now the title can also be too short. Let me give you an example of a title that's too short that doesn't make the statement clear enough. Doesn't make the statement clear enough. Let's say we have the title hierarchy and team effectiveness. Okay, this is very, very short and it's very broad. But if you want to be more clear, we could say, okay, why and when. Why and when hierarchy impact team. To impacts team effectiveness. Or impacts team effectiveness. Impacts team effectiveness. And then you might put a semicolon to try and give a clear idea of a subtitle area. Meta-analytic integration. This title is very clear. This title is very, very clear. whereas this title is not that clear. So these are things that they are looking for in journals or in research papers or writing thesis papers on how to actually write an effective title that really represents the paper that we are trying to write. Now, every paper includes the name and author of authors in the bylines. So let me talk a little bit about authors. So the preferred form that we have of the author's name is usually the first name, the middle name, and then the last name. For me, it'd be Peter John Warner. So and this is a form that is most common. Of course, some people do not have a middle name, or maybe they just only have one name, so they wouldn't have those areas that they would follow. The we don't usually put initials on the title page, but on the reference section or other sections, which I'll be talking about later, yes, we do use initials for middle names in those areas. The some format that we have for titles for the authors, the format. One of the format things we're looking at is if you have one author, if you're one author, if you only have one author in the paper, then you write that author and you write that person's institution underneath. So in this case, it'd just be me, and it'd be the institution of Tohoku University, centered underneath that title. So if you have one author, then this would be the way that you could put the bylines there. If the paper has multiple authors, then under the names of the authors, we need to put the various institutions that they are with. Now, if it say that I am one of the authors and have another author, which would be Jesse Kawahala. And say that he is working at Sendai Technical College. So if we both are writing the article, then we would have our affiliations in different areas. Now, if for some reason the two of us are at the same university, if we're both at Tohoku University, then we would put both authors, and then we would have Tohoku University underneath to represent both of us, for both myself and Jesse. So this is a way that we can put authors and the affiliations underneath with the section. Now, the other thing is for names, we do not put inside here, we do not put PhD usually, okay, on title pages. If you're submitting in journals, it depends on the journal that you're looking at or the university. But in many cases, usually they just have the names. But in some, we do actually see the PhD or doctor included. So this is the author affiliations. The other thing we have besides, let's say that we have, so we could have one author with two affiliations. I could be working at two universities. In that case, I would put both my name and I would have Tohoku University and I might have Sendai Technical College underneath my name. Or we could have two authors with two different affiliations, as I just did with myself. We could have three or more authors and different affiliations. In that case, you have to put each three authors and then different affiliations. Or you could have three authors and the same affiliation. So you just have three authors and then one affiliation listed underneath. So, what is important about authors listed on the title page? Well, one thing that is to keep in mind is whoever is the first author on the title page is the main author of the publication. And anybody that follows should be in terms of percentage of assistance and writing the paper. So usually it goes in a degree of effort put into the paper. And usually the authors have to agree on that before they actually put their names on the paper. Now, the author note, which is at the bottom of the title page, might state this research is funded by the educational ministry of Japan. And then this way, by putting an author note, and then they will just have the author note listed on the bottom, and then the author note will be put underneath. And this way, if some important part or somebody that needs to be identified, especially if we get millions of yen to work on the project, then we need to give them credit in the title page. So this is very important also. Okay, let's go with the running head. Okay, running head is a title that goes at the top of every single page of your paper. Now the running head might be up at the top left margin. It's usually right at the very top, and that running head could be used to put the chapters of the chapter. So it might talk about if this chapter is the introduction, then each page of the introduction will have some running head titled introduction at the top of the page. And when you get to chapter 2, then it will have the second running head at the top of the page that it will be listing. So depending on the running heads are not necessary, but they are one of the features that you can put into papers. The other thing that we have in papers, once you have the title page, the second page usually has the abstract. And the abstract is a summary of our paper, the contents of the paper, and what we are actually trying to highlight and to summarize the main points of our paper so that the person knows what the paper contains and what they can expect to find inside the paper. This can be abstract is it can be a short abstract or a long abstract depending on what type of paper you're writing. If it's a short paper for a journal or 10 to 20 pages, usually your abstract might be 200 words. If it's for a textbook, then your abstract might be a little bit longer. could be probably 5 or 6 pages long. So the abstract depends on what type of article you're actually writing, and so you can use the abstract. The most common abstract is usually the 200 to 250 word abstract. And then at the bottom of an abstract, usually we have our keywords. Keywords. Keywords are words that are what we actually will identify or what we are addressing in our paper. For example, I might have the keywords for research that I'm doing. I might have the research code switching, language transfer, bilingualism. These would be all words that would be relating to what I am actually discussing in the paper. So when a AI or journal is reading through the papers, that they can pick up those keywords and then they can highlight that and bring it to people's attention who are searching for that content area. So this is also a important area that we can add into our paper. But keywords are not absolutely necessary, but they can be added in. The next, after you get your abstract, then comes your text. Then you're actually writing a paper. The text, what you're actually writing in your paper. Or sometimes people refer to this as the body. The body. This is where we actually have the content telling about our paper that we're actually writing. And the text usually consists of a introduction, which might include a review of some articles, past research that you're drawing on, and why this research is very important. Then introducing your topic and the purpose of your thing. And once you have the introduction, you would have your after this you have the purpose, which is tied into the introduction, the methodology, telling how you're going to write, what methods you're going to use for your paper, followed by, this could be methodology can also tell about how you're going to analyze your paper, and following that will be your results. And you could have a discussion follow. Sometimes these two are combined, results discussion, but many times the results are done first and discussion second. If you're doing 3 sample experiments, you might have the results and discussion in experiment 1, experiment 2, and experiment 3. So it depends on how you're actually organizing a paper. And then you're going to have your conclusion at the end of the paper with some type of a framework for other authors to go off in a different direction and build on the research that you actually built yourself. And lastly, the reference section, which has a list of all your citations of all your authors that you cited inside your text. And this will build up your paper. Now, another thing we have also sometimes in our papers are footnotes. And these are sometimes made down at the bottom of the paper if you're using a literary style, or some people put the footnotes at the end of the paper. APA has a tendency to prefer to put all the footnotes in the back of the paper. But if you look at other journal styles, literature, and mostly literature, the footnotes are put on the page actually where they make the citation, and where they will give you a note uh, about what they are trying to say on that page. Besides the reference and footnotes, we also have so the footnotes will usually follow the reference if we do have them at the end of a paper in APA. And following footnotes, we also have the appendices. Appendices. And appendices is a large table, I'll be talking about tables and figures more later on. But basically, if you have a large table, usually you don't want to throw a large table that's going to take up 3 to 4 pages in the middle of the paper, because this is very difficult to read, because you're trying to, you have to go past those 4 pages to get to the next text section. And it can be considered, it is time consuming, but in APA style, if anything is over 1 page long, sometimes they'll accept 1 or 2 pages in APA style, but tables or figures that are larger than 2 pages usually go to the appendix section in the back of the paper. And then you refer to the back of the paper, Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix C. I'll be talking about how they label appendices and how they label tables separately in another session where I'll be talking about tables and figures specifically. So, but appendices are usually identified like Appendix A, Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix C, if we're using the APA, where tables will go with Table 1, Table 2, Table 3, Table 4. So usually in APA, they use the numbers for tables, and appendices, if it's using the appendices, they use A, B, C, D. But this is just a format for APA. Other journals may use numbers in the appendix, in the appendix. So it depends on the journal. Check the journal specifications and follow whatever they suggest. You might have supplemental materials for your research that you're actually working on. So supplemental materials could be supplemental materials. Supplemental materials could be video clips. If you have a video clip or something and you have it on a DVD or something, if you're putting it in the back of a book, it could be something like that. It could be a computer code on a computer code on a CD, or stored somehow other way inside the textbook. They might even have a scanning code now that you could actually go to the internet and a scanning area where you could actually access the data. This is also another way you can get access to the supplemental data. Sometimes they will have if it's educational materials, they might have some sample worksheets and stuff that you could actually use. Some people put this in the appendix area, but other people put this into a supplemental materials area. So this depends on where you're which way you want to actually write and follow. So these are the main points of the required elements. These are what are required for a paper, or what we consider required to consider a academic paper that is an academic paper that is actually working with consistent guidelines that are set up by a journal or education. So now I'm going to look at the importance of the format. So moving to format. We have the paper, the physical appearance of how you write a paper will possibly have cause a detraction where people will not want to read it. It could detract from it, or if it's well prepared, then it can encourage more effort by the reader to actually read the paper with more ease and understand it better. So what is the order of the pages? The order of pages is quite important usually in a paper. Usually in the title page, it depends on where you're writing a paper. Some universities will have you put the title page as page 1. But other universities don't want the title page as page 1. Then they might start with the first page of the paper that you're actually writing, which would be the introduction. Introduction could be the first area where you start your numbers of 1, 2, 3, 4 for the pages. It depends. For my thesis that I wrote, my title page did not have a number 1 for the university I was working at, and the sections where I had the summary of the contents in an outline, that was in that section we had little Roman letters, a 1 and 2 and then 3. And then if we had a little prologue to tell about introduction to the paper, and then once the introduction and the purpose started, that's where my first page and second page and third page started. It depends on the guidelines of your journal. Check how they want the pages ordered and numbered. Okay, so the other thing we could look at is page headers. Where does a page number go? Does it go on the right? Does it go in the middle, on the bottom? These are all things that you can decide for yourself, or may be decided by the journal themselves. Furthermore, font. We don't want the font to be too small, but we don't want the font to be too big. So check with the font size. The common font size is usually 10, 10.5, or up to 12 usually. Those are the common font sizes for most journals. I would say between 10 to 10.5 is probably the most common, but it depends on the journal. The other thing we have are special characters. So when we're using special characters, such as Greek letters or other letters that are hard to get off of a computer, right now you can get most of the characters off of a computer, but before it was difficult to try and get some of them. So
Sensei,
yes.
before we start again, you mentioned the Japanese culture, or at least in Tohoku, apply for APA. Do you want to explore more that kind of information, please?
Sure. The AP, there is, as I said, we have APA, which is the most common used in psychology or um, psychology and sciences right now. APA is probably the most common uh, style that is accepted or used by most journals. However, we have the Journal of Literature, we have mathematic journals, which have other formats that they use. So actually, at Tohoku University, um, it depends on the department which style they are using for their journals. For my department, which is the International Cultural Studies department, most of our papers follow the APA guidelines generally. But if a student really wants to follow another guideline and the professor approves of it, um, then it is possible to write it in another format. Um, there is nothing saying that it cannot be done, but most professors in the area that I'm in prefer the APA, and so therefore we teach the APA guidelines to our graduate students in the International Cultural Studies department, and we are not really teaching the other guidelines of all the other journals inside our department. And that's probably one of the reasons that I've been teaching the APA guidelines to them. So, but I would say that the guidelines have the ability to be flexible in universities usually. They're more flexible than in international journals. Now, I would say that they are flexible to a point for like if you're a master's student, the flexibility is probably I'd say more fluid. The students can have more variety inside the article because it's not published online. Um, and master's papers are very hard to get, or most people don't access master's papers to get research from outside. They can, but mostly they're accessing doctor's papers from doctor's students. Now, our doctor's papers at Tohoku University, we've gone online since about 10 years ago. We everything on the all our doctor's papers have to go online, and they have to be open access to everybody. So therefore, they apply very strict APA guidelines to the doctor's papers that are going online. And that's why students have to work very, very hard to follow the APA guidelines when they're actually writing those papers. If they don't write within those guidelines, the professors will strongly push them to change because we want to have a consistent form that everybody is reading inside our department online internationally. And so therefore, that's one reason that we use the APA in our area. But I would state that's only in our area. If you go to the mathematics or the engineering, they use different guidelines for their area, and those professors there will emphasize those guidelines that are probably most applicable to the high Q1 journals that are publishing their data. So this is probably the most common in that area. Does that? I think that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Sensei. One more question. Since the APA is a style of writing reference, in the same times, now we have software like reference management, like
Yeah.
Mendeley, for example. And
Yes.
on
Yes.
the other hand, somehow I took so for this kind of help from the software and AI and a lot of things uh, with the like kind of the computer assisted writing. So how we can learn at least not to memorize all the rule of the APA, but at least we understand the style of APA, and then computer AI will help us to improve this one. What is your comment, Sensei?
I believe that someday there will be programs that are set up for APA style and that will actually be able to correct sentences so that they're academically written in the APA format. But right now there is no such specific program. Now, what I would foresee in the future, because I see many companies or many software providers are actually hiring teachers or editors and those to actually create and edit things in the program, so the program is looking for those specific things more clearly, and therefore identifying those, which would probably in the future help out editors of journals or others who are actually checking the articles when they're actually reading them. But at this point now, there is no program that really is set up, as far as I know, for APA specifically, or the Literature Society, or for the Science Mathematical Science Society guidelines. There is no specific program that is set up for any specialty area or journal. And right now, you just have to read what are the requirements for each journal and which guidelines they're following of a certain society that they accept as being the appropriate guidelines for their journal. So I hope that something is done in the future to help more, but AI has come a long way, and it is creating. They are creating much better organization of sentences or written texts so that they can help us. So it's getting there. It's getting there. There will come a day when we probably will not have to work so hard to memorize all of them. But right now, I think you still have to know. You should know all the guidelines of the APA or the other area when you're writing. I bet you know. Okay, does that answer that area? Yes.
Like to offer the opportunity for friend of us. Thank you for joining, especially friend of us from IAI DDI Polman, Polewali Mandar, the one that you meet in summer school and before pandemic, Sensei. They are in West Sulawesi. If there is one want to raise any kind of questions, please raise your hand, or you can write down on the chat box. But if there is no any questions right now, you can continue the explanation, Sensei.
Is there any further questions up till now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And we are waiting if there is anyone want to raise questions. We give them opportunity, but you still can continue.
Okay, so if somebody gives a question or raise their hand, then I will be more than happy to address the question.
Anyone, you can open your mic and raise the question.
Okay, excuse
Yeah, go
me,
ahead.
Prof.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just now, you give us some a form of giving abstract about
Mhm.
20 or 250
Yeah.
words. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to ask, is there any uh specific form in making the abstract for easy to be accepted in some other qualified journal, for example? Why? Because in Indonesia, sometimes we hear about IMRAT introduction and yeah, method and so on. Is there
Okay.
any kinds of specific form there
I would
for
say,
that?
okay, there is a specific order. I'm going to be talking more about abstracts later on, but I will say something today. One of the general things that needs to be done in abstracts is abstracts are written. Um, abstracts are written in what we call active form. Active form. Okay. So basically, the thing that they avoid is passive voice. I'm sorry, voice, active voice. So the um, active voice is makes it sound like the paper is in the process when they're reading the paper that it's taking place right at that moment. It's not in the past, but it's taking place at that moment. So in the abstract, usually we write this paper will, even though we already came to the conclusion, this paper will look at this, and we find that we find something, but we don't usually put we found, or in the this this was this study was this study was demonstrated over 6 months, or we don't use the passive forms inside these areas. We usually use the active forms. So this is sometimes difficult for some people because academically, if you read almost all abstracts in international journals, you'll see that almost every sentence is an active voice. But that's only in the abstract. That's only in the abstract. You could have passive and active. You should have some balance between passive and active inside your paper. So I'm not saying avoid passive. And if you do have passive, maybe you might have one or two passives inside your abstract. But your abstract should be very, very strongly active voice. This is the one thing I would say that you could work on in the abstract. The other things we don't usually do in the abstract, which I'll be talking about later, would be personalizing it to ourselves. Because usually, if you make it personal, like it's your personal opinion, it's not as scientifically relevant. And then the person may think that this is just an opinion that you have, and it may not be applied elsewhere. So usually we don't use the form I think, I think, I think. It might be, usually we don't postulate and things inside a abstract. Usually in the abstract, we try to be very clear and very concrete and have some type of concrete finding. And if we do have some faults in our paper that we are worried about, usually those would come up inside the text section of our paper. So these are the points I would say that you could work on in an abstract to make your abstract better and more well written. I will go into more detail into fine points about what you can do later on, and hope to highlight these when I get to the specific section where I'm actually talking about how to write an abstract. Okay? I can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Yeah, thanks for about the abstract specific form
Okay.
of abstract.
I will be coming back to it, and I promise you I will be talking in more detail about other areas that you can work to make the abstract very clear and concise,
Yeah.
starting from the top and making it within the 200 words, and how you can do that.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Is there any other questions before I move on? Okay. If not,
Yeah, go ahead, Sensei.
okay. The other thing that we have in a form of a paper is line spacing. And this means it's either single or double. So how many spaces do we have on a paper? Again, the title page usually has double space. The title page usually has double space between. But if we have tables or figures we usually single space line spaces. Footnotes also single line spaces, don't have double space in those. Same thing with sometimes with the references section, they don't have a double space. So check the guidelines of your journal that they use for their qualification. Some people do double spacing just to try and make a paper look longer. But if this is a purpose of doing the double spacing, and that's not a very good reason to do double spacing. The quality of the paper and what you actually write inside the paper is what really matters. Double spacing is usually used because we want to make it easier to read and maybe jot notes on in between if we actually wanted to do that. So it depends on the journal or where you're writing. The other section that they have is margins. So the margins on the side of the paper. This is the used to be we had you'd write something, and if a word didn't fit all the way, you might have a hyphen like regenerate, and you have a period, and you want to try and fill in all the way over to the margin as far as possible. But right now, most journals will use a automatic spaces of words, so these spaces in between will be extended or shortened just a little, so that you don't even notice that they're really different. And the margins will come out at the end, so it is set with a margin at the end with full words. So we usually don't see hyphenation much anymore, but it does occur with some journals. But in most journals, I would say with the new type modification of the spacing, now this form is used more commonly for the margins. And there are different types of margins. This may be 1.5 or 2 centimeters, depending on the top margin, how far that margin goes in, and that margin. Just make sure you follow the margins of the guidelines of the journal that you're actually using. Paragraph alignment. Again, the paragraph.
Bisa aja tahun ini baru nilai bertambah ini MOU internasionalnya.
Yeah, the question? Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Go ahead, Sensei.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, the also with paragraph alignment, when we're doing paragraphs, we have to it used to be that they went 5 spaces in, 5 spaces, and then start with the first word, today, and follow it through with a sentence, and have this 5 space in front. Now it's fairly common in most journals. I see 2 spaces now in front of the. So it depends on the journal. I'm not saying 5 spaces is wrong or 2 spaces, but now 2 spaces is the more common accepted indentation for paragraphs if we're actually doing paragraphs. So this is very common. One of the things that I have a problem with in student writing when they're writing is just this idea of understanding these margins. So they might write a sentence like, today is good. The weather is hot and humid. I am very tired because it is so hot. Now, sometimes I have students will write me paragraphs like this, where there's no margins at all, and you can't tell where the paragraph is, where the paragraph begins or where the paragraph ends. This is a common thing with my some first-year students. At first, I thought that this was just because they were using their phone to type in their things, because if they're doing a phone, they have a tendency to have to repeat and it doesn't automatically return. But there should be an automatic return, and we should not be returning every single paragraph, every single sentence. So we need to follow these guidelines to have a paragraph that fits like so, okay? And then have the new paragraph indented again before it starts out. So this is, we need to be sure to follow these alignments, and make sure they are flush. And the indentations should be at the beginning of each paragraph that we actually have. These are for professional consistency in keeping papers well written. And I can't tell you how much I have first-year college students doing the one sentence back, and Tohoku University is supposed to have the top 30% of Japan and writers, and still I see these students in my classes. I think they are everywhere because in high school they're not taught properly how to do that. So this is something we need to be aware of. The other thing that we need to think about is paper length. Paper length. So the paper length. How long should the paper be? Okay, journals differ in the length of how the papers are that they want to publish. Some journals only want you to write 2,000 to 2,500 words. But some journals may think that this is not enough, work. Some journals may expect between 3,000 to 4,500 words. It depends on the journal. one of the things that may determine the number of words that the journal is asking is whether they are printing it or whether it's online. If it's an online journal, usually they don't care too much about how many words you're writing, because online you don't have to pay for the number of pages. So therefore, there's more flexibility with online journals. Printed journals cost money, and therefore printed journals are more strict with shorter articles usually. So check with your paper, check the paper length that should be done. But if you're a student and you're asking a teacher, how long should my paper be? It shouldn't be a question of how long the paper should be. It should be how well do I need to write my paper? The what is written inside your paper and the purpose and the organization, that is the most important thing. And if you have a well organized and logically written paper, then you can sometimes write in less pages and you don't need more pages. So when graduate students ask me, how many pages should I have for my doctor's thesis? I can't say, oh, you should have at least 250 pages, because most people write 250 pages. It's not the number of pages, because if we do that, then we see people will maybe they write 100 pages and they have a single space. They have single spacing. So to reach the 250 pages, the professor says, okay, double space it so you can have 250 pages. So there's no meaning behind it, because the single space or the double space are the same length. The same length in number of words. So therefore, the number of pages is not what really matters. It's how well you write your paper and how you want to present it. So if a paper does exceed a length, there are ways to cut back the paper and make it more concise. One of the things that we see is redundancy, and I will be talking about that later. How can we get the redundancy out of our paper? Things that don't need to be in there. So basically, cutting out the areas that we don't need and then fixing those areas and adding in new information where we need it. So this is what I wanted to talk about when I was looking at the format. Now is there any other questions on format before I move on to organization? These are all basically formats that I just talked about. Okay, let me move to organization. Okay. So in scholarly writing, the organization structure should be clear, and it should have a logical communication. So before we write, we need to consider the best paper length that we are going to write, and what structure are we going to use for our findings. So if we order our thoughts logically by doing an outline or create sentence and paragraph levels, we can strengthen our impact of our writing and create a very well developed paper. So the headings in a document are very important. Headings help identify the sections of a paper. What can we do with heading levels? What type of heading levels could we have? So basically, let's say, for example, introduction heading is a very general, broad heading label. So usually this heading might go in the center, in bold letters or highlighted, and be very clear. While we have other headings would be subheadings would come off on the side. So we might have introduction. We might have the past research, and current research. If we're writing it, we might have a 1.0 and 1.1, okay, or something on the side, depending on how we number. And then we might even have inside these, we might have other subheadings that will have paragraphs embedded inside them with information. So let me give you an example of let's see, we might have, let's try something else here. We could have, like, say, let's say we have age and gender difference in self-esteem. Age and gender difference. Age and gender difference, okay? So in self-esteem. So underneath that, we could have this could be the general one, which would be in the center of the paper. This is in the center. Okay, it doesn't look like center there, but we'll say it is in the center. Now, on the side of the paper, we could have in the first one, we could have gender and age differences. Gender and age differences, which it talks about just the gender and age differences. And the second thing it could talk about is the cross-cultural differences, dealing with the self-esteem, cross-cultural differences. And then we could move into the middle again and then go to the method. And after we go to the method, then in the method, what do we have in a method? We would have participants, of course. Participants, that would be one header. The other thing we could have is, how do we measure? What measures are we using? Measures. Or we could be looking at, well, how do we determine self-esteem? So we can have these three headers and cover how we go through the method to collect our data. Then after we, and then we could go on further with the procedure and the results and do the same exact thing through the rest of the organization. In this way, we can use headers to actually organize our information on our paper. If you go to the if you're interested in seeing a sample paper, I recommend you to go to the internet and write, you can put like APA sample paper. If you do that into the search mechanism, this will actually probably guide you to a sample paper inside the text and how they actually write it. If you want a different one, not from APA, you can even type the other one, literature is ILS. I don't know, ILS. I forgot what it was. Okay, but anyway, whatever the organization or society is, check their sample paper that they have inside their journals that they are providing for guidance. and they will give you a list of how you can organize your paper and have a well organized and developed paper. The other thing you can do is look at the journals, read other journals, and look at their organization of those papers, because that's what their articles are based on. They are based on the same procedures that are used inside that journal. So with that, that's what I wanted to talk about today, to cover the areas of the format, the organization, the paper elements that are used and required, and what is required to provide this consistent, um, orderly, structured, formatted paper that will be considered acceptable in an academic standards environment. So I'm open to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sensei. If the audience would like to raise any kind of questions, feel please free to raise your hand or open your mic. And uh, in addition, you can write down on the chat box. And then this explanation from Sensei already give us a view how that kind of the organization of the academic writing. And then he mentioned a lot about APA, one of the style of the writing. When we want to write, for sure, we need to cite, we need to have reference, and then for that, we need the guidance. And then the one of the guidance, the popular one of the popular is APA style. We have another Harvard, Chicago, MLA, and other kind of style, or in the university, they have their own style for writing and the reference. I would like to invite everyone, if you have any kind of questions, and then we already have this third meeting, and then Sensei already guide us for this one, and then for those who cannot join us online, uh, there still be availability on the live YouTube, and then everyone still have the documentation. There is an archive over there in the YouTube. If there is no someone want to raise any kind of questions before hand over to Sensei once more, I'd like to announce that there will be another program with Sensei for the during 2025 in Indonesia. For the schedule one, there will be another Balim Forum in Wamena from 17 to 25 of May, inshallah. And then I try my best before another flight to Wamena. Sensei will have one session, 1 day session in Makassar. And the second one, we will have another program in Japan during August from 24 to 31. For sure, if someone want to join us, you can contact me, or you can contact Mas Otto. And then during a week, in the end of August, we will somewhere else in Tokyo, Sendai, Kanazawa, Matsushima, and Osaka. Before we end our class, I'd like to invite once more Sensei to say something for the closing statement.
Okay, I hope that the what I talked about today helped you. Next week, next time I plan on talking about the journal article reporting standards. So I will be going into the journals specific standards. Today I was very general. The I apologize, but I'm not going to be back for a while because I won't be back till January because I'm leaving for a trip on Friday, and I'll be busy through Christmas vacation and New Year's. So the next sessions are going to be what's that? The January. I think we have a probably January the 3rd will probably be the first session we can have again. So Dr. Wecke will go ahead and set up the sessions from then. So I can probably do the Fridays and Wednesdays. I'll try to do 2 days a week from there so I can fit more sessions in January. But I have a very busy schedule, so I apologize during Christmas and season. I'm leaving the country and doing some seminar series abroad. So I really cannot do this during December. So my apologies for that. So I will look forward to seeing everybody in January, possibly January 3rd for our next session. Or if it's a holiday there for you on January 3rd, probably January the 8th on Wednesday, depending on, I don't know what the schedule is over there on January 3rd.
Thank you, Sensei. So we will not have the session the rest of the December.
No, we won't be able to because I'm out of the country.
Okay, so we will have the class start in January.
January. So January 3rd or January 8th. Okay, either one that works best for you guys. You can set it up.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sensei, for the class today. And ladies and gentlemen, we will have another seminar with Sensei. The schedule of the day in the chat box, and then we will discuss the topic or any kind of proposal from every one of us during 2025. And then one more things that before the class start, I already discussed with Sensei that we will have another program in Japan during 2025. It will be the last week of August. So you can start to save money for those who want to join us in Japan to go around. During summer, it is still summer, so don't be worried about the cold.
Yeah. So for those people who didn't go, they can talk.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Sensei?
I was just saying, for those people who wanted to know what it was like here with Matsushima or something, they can always talk to the delegates who came here and find out how welcoming and how it's very easy to get food and travel in Japan. So I do hope this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Sensei. And then one of the destination will be there in 2025 is Matsushima, a village in near from Sendai, the one that affected by tsunami at the time. But when we came for the visit last month, it seems that it is already developed well. And thank you very much for everyone already joined our class today. For those who could join through the Zoom, and for those who are joining through the streaming on the YouTube. And thank you, Sensei, and have a nice afternoon, everyone. And
Thank you, bro.
bye.